Hey guys, it's Bear. It's Friday, January 29th, 2016, and today actually marks a month since I started estrogen blockers. I had mentioned this in some previous videos. Around the 8-month mark on testosterone, I was starting to feel some weird things going on, more sort of emotionally and mentally than physically, and I went in and I got my blood test done. I was about 2 months early. They wanted me to come in at 10 months and get that blood work done, but like I said, I felt like something was definitely off. Something had changed in my outlook since I had started T, and at that time we found out that while my testosterone levels were pretty much the same as they had been since I, had my initial rise, they were in the 600 numbers, my estrogen had gone from being suppressed right around 25, which is where you want it, to be rather high. It was up in the like 150 to 180 area. I started at about 250. That's about normal for your estrogen levels as a female-bodied person. So the numbers were definitely off, and at that time my doctor thought, and rightfully so, that it could have been because my testosterone levels were too high. So what can happen sometimes is if your body is not metabolizing and using your replacement hormone, your body will convert it into the hormone that it wants to be creating. So in my case, I have ovaries. That means my body wants to produce estrogen. So naturally, the first thing that we tried to do was lower my testosterone dose. I went in 6 weeks later and got the blood test done again. It turned out that lowering my testosterone dose had lowered my testosterone, but my estrogen had continued to rise, and it was up around 225. So it was back to nearly what it had been before I started testosterone. And at that point, you're in danger of starting to have your period again, which is obviously something that I don't want to go through. It's a matter of like really bad dysphoria for every trans man that you talk to. We don't want these parts inside of us. We don't want to think about them, and having a monthly reminder as well as the discomfort of a period is just not a happy thing for us. So I wanted to avoid that at all costs, but more importantly, I wanted to get that emotional weirdness in check. Like I said, when I started testosterone, I felt something come over me that was just different, and I had lost that, So my doctor and I went back and forth for several months debating whether to start a couple of different treatment programs. So the options that I had in front of me were to start progesterone, which is sort of like a pre-androgen. It is part of what causes your body to actually have a period. It keeps your lining in check for part of your cycle, and then when your progesterone levels drop, that's when you actually get a period. So putting you on progesterone as a trans male is a way of bringing those levels stable throughout your entire month. They do not have a drop as they would in a prescription for a cis female or for a trans female. For those people, what they do is they put you on 3 weeks of one dose and 1 week of a lower dose, which will cause either a period or period-like symptoms for like a trans female, which is why trans females go on progesterone. So he wanted me to be on basically 4 weeks of the same dose so that it would control my cycle. He was more concerned with the physical aspects. I am more concerned with, again, that emotional weirdness, and the progesterone wouldn't have done anything for that. It's basically like going on birth control. It would have just stopped my cycle. My estrogen levels would have stayed rising or leveled out at wherever. I don't want to play with any of that, so I didn't really want to go on the progesterone. My other options were a hysterectomy, either a full or a partial hysterectomy, removing either the entire, anatomy, the uterus, the ovaries, or just the ovaries, so that you're not producing estrogen anymore. frankly, at this time, I've got some life plans coming up soon, and I don't want to have another surgery, even if it's laparoscopic and there's no, complications or anything like that. I just don't want surgery again this time. Plus, you are always chancing complications. So even with a laparoscopic surgery, like a hysterectomy, you never know how things are going to go, and I don't want to chance that at this time. So the third option is to start estrogen blockers. So you can Google these things, and I started doing that, and as most trans men do, you get a little bit scared when you're reading about these side effects and stuff, which is why I wanted to make this video. So going on a blocker is gonna stop my body from producing the amounts of estrogen it had been producing. But the problem is the information for these drugs for trans men is not really available online, because what you're gonna end up being on is something that they use as a treatment for women with breast cancer. So when you look this stuff up, when you look up these brand names, that's what you're gonna find, and you're gonna find a whole list of side effects and uses and stuff. So I went and looked at that and immediately was like discouraged and didn't know where to turn, because I didn't want to do the progesterone, I didn't want to do the hysterectomy, and these side effects look really scary. So after talking to my doctor, I was really relieved, and I decided to do the blockers. But let me tell you a little bit more about that. So with the blockers, I'm on a generic for Arimidex. I'm on anastrozole. I'm not going to tell you my dosage, because I'm going to put this on places online where they don't like you to talk about your doses. But basically, the list of complications and side effects includes like hot flashes, joint pain, weakness, mood swings, back pain, sore throat, nausea, vomiting, rash, high blood pressure, osteoporosis, fractures, and insomnia and headache. So, when looking at that, you get kind of freaked out. You're like, man, this doesn't sound like a fun thing to be on. But again, what you have to consider, and what I talked to my doctor about, is that these drugs are not just for blocking estrogen in trans men who don't want their bodies flooded with estrogen. They're for women with breast cancer, and most specifically for cancer which is hormone receptor positive. You can find out more about that online. I'm not going to get into that. But basically, it's a cancer that's feeding on your estrogen, and so they want to stop the production of estrogen in order to stop the cancer from feeding. So, point one is that a woman with breast cancer would be on a much higher dose of this drug than what I'm going to be on. I'm on an incredibly low dose once a day. They're going to be on a much higher dose and possibly more often throughout the day. So it's going to produce much greater chances for side effects. The other thing is that in a female with breast cancer, they are knocking out their body's natural hormone, and they're not replacing it with anything. So for trans men, what we have to consider, and the reason that we're not going to experience all these side effects, or the majority of them, is because we're decreasing the estrogen production, but we are also replacing it with testosterone. So in the case of like the osteoporosis, the osteoarthritis, and bone pain and so forth, you're not going to necessarily have those because you're replacing the estrogen with testosterone. Estrogen feeds all your hormones rather feed all sorts of things in your body, including your bone strength and so forth. So for us, we're not likely to have tons of this stuff because we're replacing it with the testosterone injections or gels or whatever. So the one side effect that is still possible is to have sort of like aching joints or a deep muscle ache. and that's just something that happens to some people, and if it does happen to you, there's no way to make it go away. So that's blockers in a nutshell. I did make the choice to go on them. I've been on for a month. I haven't experienced any of those symptoms like the joint ache or the deep muscle ache that my doctor was saying, listen, if you get it, it's not going to go away and you're going to have to stop the blockers. I haven't had that. And we don't know how long it would take for that to show up, so it's something I'm constantly on the watch for. I'm athletic, so I am often sore, but it's nothing that's abnormal, nothing alarming, and nothing that doesn't go away after a couple of days. That's pretty much it as far as where I'm at right now. Like I said, we're waiting. In another 2 weeks, I'll go in and I'll have some more blood tests done to find out where my hormones are standing. And in the meantime, just kind of keeping an eye on things. Everything else is normal. Everything else is good. And I'm going to stop talking your ear off now, guys. That's my update. I'll let you know how things are going as things go forward. And thanks for listening.